How you guys doing today? My name is Shady, and I'll be discussing the negation for today's debate on Megan's Law. The proposition begs for a change in policy, meaning a change in what is a subsection called Jacob Wettering Crimes Against Children and Sexuality Violent Offender Registration Act, which is a subsection of Megan's Law. This law was enacted because of a girl, one girl, named Megan Kanke, who was a girl that was attacked by a previous sex offender living across the street. This wasn't a regular guy, this wasn't a regular stranger, this was a guy who was convicted of a crime previously and did that same crime again to another girl, another victim. The opposition wants us to go back and live in a world where we make legislations and repeal them in the same year, or in the same time period. Wake up. We do not live in a world where you are safe. We do not live in a world where you can trust your neighbor. Just yesterday, we had a shooting in San Bernardino where 14 people were killed. And currently, gun control and gun violence, as a legislation, has little to do on that effect. So going back to Megan's Law, the opposition brings up a non-feasible action to repeal the law because of sex offenders' rights? That doesn't make sense to me. They lost their rights when they sexually offended other people. They lost their rights when they harassed an innocent girl. They lost their rights when they attacked somebody. They do not have any more rights. The opposition has one main contention, and is that we should repeal Megan's Law based on the fact that it is a cruel and unusual punishment. However, based on expertlaw.com, that is not the case. Sex offenders' rights do not outweigh the public's rights. In the article, it states that sex offenders have raised a number of challenges to the nation's various sex offending registration and notification laws. While the courts do require some level 4 respect of the convicted sex offenders, the importance of protecting the safety of the public outweighs their right to privacy. So in that, the first contention of the opposition is already destroyed due to the fact that there is no recollection for sex offending rights. Another thing the opposition starts talking about is collateral damage and what that sex offender registry does to the community around. The opposition starts talking about how property value is affected, but currently that isn't the case. According to Scientific America, an article based on misunderstood crimes of sex offender, the writer Steve Kirk talks about how property value isn't directly correlated and quotes, doesn't cause property values to go down due to a sex offender living by. This registry does nothing other than protect those around the community and has no recollection or does no influence to the surrounding community in terms of property value. The opposition also talks about how the Megan's Law legislation does little to specify who does the crime or who does the crime correlate to. A sex offender is a sex offender. That doesn't change the nature of a crime. They're a criminal who committed a certain heinous act. The opposition starts talking about how public nudity public nudity is a crime under Megan's Law. However, if I go outside and I take, like there's no bathroom close by and I pee outside, I'll get arrested for public nudity, but I won't be registered by Megan's Law. That isn't part of the legislation. The opposition also talks about, in their same contention, how the living restrictions of the sex offender is being burdened with. However, like I talked about earlier, according to expert law, the sex offender's rights do not outweigh the public. The main concern that the opposition also brings up is that they would like to repeal the law because it dispels certain effects. These effects can include harming sex offenders or those harassed by those harassing sex offenders. However, broad form, if you can go on your local website, you can go up to Pomona and / Megan's Law, and you can find in San Bernardino, Pomona, they have different registries for different cities. And in it, it has bold letters on the top of, before you even get to click on Megan's Law, And it says it is illegal to use this database for further information to harass or harm a registered sex offender. So in and itself, that's illegal to use that registry more than a purpose than it already is. So after going against the proposition contentions, I would like to bring up my own contentions about why this law should not be repealed and should stay the same. Currently, Megan's Law is doing a lot in the GPS industry because governments are buying GPS tracking and keeping them on the members of who are getting registered for sex offenders. And on NPR.org, it says that Louisiana has become one of the first states to nearly track all of its government vehicles. And it's hoped to cut down on fuel and to prevent accidents, and is off to a project to a good start. So that in its case is an example of the states using its own government money, which Megan's Law currently brings in states' money and grants money, to allow the state to spend on private expenditures and private companies like these GPS companies like Magellan or Garnier, and all of those companies are being used to currently track these sex offenders. So that in itself is bringing more economic upturn and allowing for our economy to grow a little bit more. Through that, I would like to conclude that the Megan's Law is meant to protect us. It is not meant to hurt us in any way, shape, or form, or to hurt anybody else. And with that said, I hope that I have convinced you to believe in the negation of this proposition.